Shall we?
Let's go. It's all you, your call today.
Hey, everybody.
So excited to see you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Really good to see all of you. Where are all of you right now? That's what I want to know in the chat. Where is everybody coming from? I am currently in Tallinn, Estonia. So where are you guys? We're Netherlands, Kuala Lumpur, New York State, Colorado, Oklahoma, Guatemala, Vancouver, London. We're global. We're definitely quite global around here. So we are, I was talking to the team about what you guys have been asking most about and so forth. And what I thought we would address today is the idea of staying on track, coming off track, getting back on track, course corrections, choosing seasons consciously, falling off the wagon, how to get back on the wagon, all that language. Does that sound good to you guys? Yes. All right. So one of the things that is patently different about WildFit than the traditional old school diet world is that the concept of a diet, even naming it, the minute you name it, the reason there's no WildFit diet is because there isn't one. There's the human diet, so there's no, like, I keep seeing these like influencers on Twitter. I saw this woman today, she's doing some good work out there, but I'm not going to name her, but she's doing some good work. And then she takes her last name, let's call it Smith, and then she creates this Smith diet. And it's like, why does your ego need to be involved in and she's just, what I'm trying to say is there's a diet, and then there's two ways to think of this. There's every species having its naturally evolved diet, and then there's the reality of the way that species is living. So diet means lifestyle. So there's your correct diet, and then there's the diet that you're actually living out there in the world. So how many of you were living a very different diet than the human diet before you ever did WildFit? Very different. Yeah, and getting very different results, right? Then you changed your diet. You changed your diet and started leaning in a direction that is more in alignment with your body's biology and so on. So, all right. So with all of that in mind, what happens when we veer? What happens when we make an exception? What happens if we start to drift? So I think that there are a couple of interesting ways to talk about this. The one is that most of us have been taught to do course corrections annually, right? Haven't we? I mean, we wait till December 31st, and at some point we make some decisions about how the next year should go, often after a few too many drinks. And then we make some commitments about how we're going to live the next year. And then by about 2 o'clock in the morning on January 1st, we've already blown most of those out, but we've already started with the first lie. And that is, well, yeah, but I'll really start tomorrow, or I'll really start the next day, or I'll really start next week, or, no point starting on your New Year's resolution in the first week of January. It's still holiday. So I'm really going to start on like January 8th, and I'll really get it going. Now, you know what? Never mind January. I mean, it's silly to start a thing like that in January. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start February. You know what? My birthday is in March. So I'm going to start fresh. Anybody had conversations like this with themselves ever? Anyone? Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to learn how to fail faster and course correct smaller and more often, right? That's what we want to work on. And so there's an old cliched metaphor about this, and that's that if a plane leaves Los Angeles, and it's on its way to Hawaii, and it's only 5 degrees off course, well, after 5 minutes, it's still basically on course. You wouldn't really know it was off course after only 5 minutes. After 15 minutes, it would be a little bit off course. You'd start to notice. But if you didn't correct course by the time you were supposed to be in Hawaii, you'd be in serious trouble, because you'd be out in the middle of the ocean somewhere without enough fuel to get to Hawaii because you didn't correct soon enough. And so what really happens, and this is true, is a plane will be off course most of the time. From the time it takes off to the time it gets, so it'll be off course most of the time, because a variety of things that'll knock it off course. Having to avoid other planes in flight, it'll have to go off course. Weather, having to avoid weather systems, simply being buffeted by the wind, what knocks it off a little bit. There's any number of things that would knock it off course, but then the autopilot or the pilot has to make adjustments quickly and bring it back on course. So it's making frequent, minuscule adjustments to get back on course. That's the recipe we're looking for here. And so how many of you would agree with this idea? The longer you are off course, the harder it is to get back on course. Who would agree with that as a basic idea? Okay, so the longer you are off course, the harder it is to get back on course. Do you know that one of the things that set us apart, that sets WildFit apart, is that we have something like an 85% success rate of people actually coming. It's actually higher than that, but 85% completion rate. And even people who don't complete it rate themselves very often as achieving tremendous success in the program. Great, awesome. But what I really want to get to here is that generally when people try to go into keto or spring on their own, they have a 10% success rate. 10% of people who attempt to get into keto will actually get into ketosis and stay there for more than a day. 10%. It's like, that's it. It's incredibly difficult to do. Why? The longer you are off course, the harder it is to get back on course. Not only that, here's another one for you. The longer you are off course, the more effort will go. Not harder, but now also the more effort will go into getting back on course. Again, the plane is off course all the way to Hawaii. It's now going to have to make up several hundred miles of extra distance. So it's going to not only be harder, but it's going to take more effort. Does that make sense for you guys as well? Okay. So if all that's true, then what we want to do is make sure that whenever we do drift off course, that we correct quite quickly, that we don't let it go on and on and on. And you know what's really crazy? I don't know how many of you guys have this experience, but like, how many of you, once you've been in spring for a while, you quite like it? You feel good, you feel mentally clear, energy's up, pains are gone, you're feeling really good, right? And then how many of you find that you come out of spring and then the last thing you want to do is go back to spring? Anybody have that? Like, that's quite common, I hear from people, and I hear it from me. Like, I'm like, I haven't been in spring for a little while, but I don't have any weight to lose. I'm in pretty good shape. I don't really need to. Weight is not the reason for going into spring. It's just one of the reasons. Going into spring is a good idea because your organs need to cycle. They need to do their different tasks. The pancreas needs to be in all of its modes. If you don't let it be in all of its modes, you're going to overstress one mode and underutilize the other. And if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So remember, the seasons are not just about your weight gain or loss. They're about allowing the body to perform the functions that the body was designed to perform, whether God designed them or Darwin. I don't really care. The pancreas was meant to be burning sugar sometimes, and it was meant to be helping burn fat sometimes, and it needs to do both things. So we want to make sure we correct course. So here I'm going, I don't really feel like, and you know what's crazy? The longer I don't go into spring, the less I want to go into spring, even though I know that when I'm in spring, I feel fantabulous. So what's going on there? What's going on there is that you don't have one brain, you have trillions of brains. You have all these organisms that live inside you. You see, you're not just this single physical being. You're basically a flock. You're a flock. You're a flock of bacteria, and you're a flock of organisms, and all of those organisms groupthink together. And so when you are in a carb mode, you have lots of carb hungry organisms, and they speak to you through your nervous system. And so the longer you stay in that mode, the more they grow, they breed, and then they multiply, and then they use democracy to keep themselves in season. Now they would never have been able to do this in the old days because, like, Mother Nature is not democratic. Like, you know, she is Mother Nature. There's nothing democratic about that woman. She tells you how it's going to be, when it's going to be, how long it's going to be, and it doesn't matter how difficult it is for you. Fruits in season? Now it isn't. It's just how it is. But now that we can influence our food supply, we're now relying on democracy inside our body. And so we start eating a little bit of carbs. We start growing a little bit of candida. The candida starts voting. The candida votes for more carbs. So then we eat more carbs. We grow more candida, and the candida has a democracy and it has a majority. And then all of a sudden we're like wondering why it is we don't want to go to spring, even though we know that in spring we have less joint pain. We have greater mental clarity. Our body shape generally feels better. We sleep better. Like, even though we know all that. And so that's why we want to make sure that we correct course quickly. We want to correct course quickly. So here's the deal. There is no WildFit wagon. We don't have one. You can't fall off it. There's no falling off the wagon. There's no such thing. And by the way, steadily you will see we've worked very hard to change the language in the WildFit culture. I want you guys to be among the ones who lead the way. We don't use the word WildFit approved. You won't see me say, "Oh, look at this meal. It's WildFit approved." You know why? Who am I to approve your meal? I'm not here to approve anything. I'm here to say, WildFit recommended, but you are in charge of what you eat because you have food freedom. You have the freedom to eat what you want, when you want, as much as you want, and then feel good about the fact that you ate it, irrespective of what it was. But you also have the ability to not eat what you really wish you wouldn't eat and do that without regret if you use willpower from time to time in short bursts to get you through the transitions. Does all this make sense to everybody? Okay. So when I say there's no wagon, and I know many of you come from other countries, but I don't know what, I think it's British, or sorry, it's Canadian American for sure. I think they use the same expression in Australia, New Zealand, England, and other sort of, English speaking countries, but we have this expression that people fall off the wagon. They quit drinking, then they fell off the wagon. I'm thinking they fell off the wagon because they started drinking again, not the other way around. Like it's a metaphor for you fell off the program, right? Well, here's the thing. I have rarely ever met somebody who has fully let go of everything that they got in WildFit. Very rarely. I've met a few, but it's very rare. Like I'll never forget. Some of you will have heard the story because I share it from time to time. But it was just this friend of mine. He did the program, and he was weighing about 500 pounds when he went to do the program. Lost 100 pounds. Called me a year later and told me he was a WildFit loser and a WildFit failure and all this kind of stuff. And I said, "Well, oh my God, did you put the weight back on?" Because he would do that normally, lose 100, gain 100, lose 100, gain 100, like just that was what he did. And he goes, "Oh, no, I never gained it back. I just didn't keep losing. I didn't keep releasing." And I go, "So are you still ordering like 2 extra large pizzas and scarfing them down at night?" "Oh, no, I don't do any of that." So, like, what about the ice cream binging? No, I don't do any of that. So what you're saying is you're 100 times healthier than you were before, and you've just stabilized at the current weight you're at. And he goes, "Yeah, that's right." And I go, "Well, if that's a WildFit failure, I'll take it. If that's a failure, I'm in. Let's take that as a failure, because automatically he's going to be in substantially better health than before. He has not fallen off the wagon. He has just not utilized the seasons as well as he could to achieve the physical goals that he wants to achieve. That's what's going on here. Now, what does that mean? Well, one of the things I want to suggest to you is this. I want to remind you about the food categories because they can be incredibly helpful, incredibly helpful. Remember that any food that you classify, we might recommend, but it's up to you to determine. Any food that we might classify as category 1, we're saying that it's a food that you really must have. And everybody's got to figure out their category 1 ultimately for themselves. We'll do the best we can to guide you in that direction. But what I would say, here's one of the reasons we don't tell you what to be in category 1. It is my opinion that meat and poultry and seafood and eggs are category 1 foods. That is my opinion. And that's how I live WildFit. But if you're a vegan, then they're not category 1 foods for you, clearly, right? And then you're gonna have to consider the consequences of that, which might be that you need a supplement, or you might need to find, and so on. But that's why we don't tell you. We're not dogmatic. We're not here to say you have to eat what we say. So category 1 is foods that you agree that you really should be eating to take care of your body's basic nutritional requirements. That's it. They are foods that you should be prioritizing first. You should be getting them every day, some of them every day. That's the deal. Category 1 foods. And by the way, everything other than category 1 foods are barely foods anyway. Category 2 foods are foods that may be good for you, but if they are, it's accidental. And there aren't lots of category 2 foods, but it's like I often think of like avocados, sweet potatoes as being category 2 foods. Yes, they might have some positive nutrients in them, but sapiens never had them before. So, like the first time any of you that are of European DNA came across, an avocado was about 400 years ago. That's a blink of a Darwinian eye. It doesn't mean a damn thing to you, your evolutionary biology. You are not dependent upon them. So nobody can argue that you need necessarily to have them. Then we go to category 3 where you go, well, it's kind of neutral. I have it from time to time. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's bad. I might put rice in here in season, not when I'm in spring. I might put something like rice. I might put sweet potatoes here or two, something like that. But when we get to categories 4 and 5, this is our whole life is going to be, our whole quality of life is going to be influenced by categories 4 and 5 as long as we've taken care of category 1. Category 4 and 5 are basically foods that we know are not so good for us. The real difference between 4 and 5 is in 5 we don't eat them anymore, and in 4 we still allow them from time to time. That's the only difference. So like I'll give you an example of for me, category 3 might be coconut cream based, like dairy-free, coconut-free based ice cream with a reasonable sweetener, coconut sugar or something like that. I might consider that, category 3, not in spring, right? You understand? Category 4 for me might be a dairy-free ice cream that actually has sugar in it, like actual sugar. That'd be category 4. Very rare that I would do a thing like that. I was in Pula last year at a Mind Valley event, and they were making dairy-free gelato that I'm pretty sure was sweetened with regular sugar. I had one, category 4. And then there's dairy-based ice cream, which is for me category 27. Like it is so category 5 that there's no, like, even if I were starving, I'm not likely to eat that thing because I don't see it as a solution to starvation, because it's an anti-food as far as I'm concerned. Now, why am I running through this for you? Because one of the things that's useful for you to do and for you to think about is really getting clear about the difference between the category 3, 4, and 5 foods, and really sticking to your guns about it. Like, and I want you to notice something. If something's category 4 and you go to your friend's house and they're serving it. So I go to my friend's house and they've made a really nice homemade ice cream, but they've sweetened it with sugar, let's say. So I'm not really a fan and I don't really want to have this, but it doesn't have dairy in it. So it's category 4 for me, right? Then when they say, oh, Eric, do you want some dessert? Then I'm more inclined to say something like, yeah, I really shouldn't. I don't think so. I really don't. Not really. But if they bring me dairy ice cream, what do I say? I don't do that. I just don't do that. Now, why is that different? Well, on one level, it's different because of what I'm communicating to myself. But on another level, it's different because of what it communicates to them. You see, when you say to your friend, no, I really shouldn't, what you're really saying is, make me. Please make me. I know I shouldn't, but come on, you can do it. Come on, sell me on it. I mean, that's really when you say, ooh, I really shouldn't. Guys, is there some truth to that? A little bit, right? Right. But when they go, oh, I got you a bowl of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and you go, oh, I don't do that. I just don't do that. You're not opening the door for them to sell you. You're not opening the door for them to convince you. No, I just don't. They go, oh, come on, it's ice. No, I don't. I don't do that. I just don't. And so one of the things you can really help yourself with in terms of this on the wagon, off the wagon, getting on track, back on track, all that kind of stuff, is really making a decision for yourself about what category 5 really means to you. And don't put it in category 5 unless you're really, truly done with it. And by the way, is it possible for something category 5 to one day audition for category 4 again? It's possible. You shouldn't allow that. Like, really, you should let the stuff descend down into category 5. And once you've made the decision that it's category 5, you should really consciously put it there. Don't go, oh, I think it's category 5 now. No. Why is it category 5? You want to know why dairy ice cream is category 5 for me? Because after my first 6 weeks without any dairy ice cream and any of that kind of stuff, cream, cheese, and all that sort of stuff, I went over to my girlfriend's house and she made an apple pie with Haagen-Dazs ice cream. And I thought, I don't want to be rude. And so I said to her, I really shouldn't. And so then she sold me because I wanted her to. And then I ate it because I wanted to. And then I was so sick the next day. My stomach hurt me so badly that I never wanted to do that again. And I put it in category 5. It was a very conscious thing and it stayed there, and I've not intentionally broken it since. So I want you guys to think about that. What is your category 5? Give me in the chat some things that are absolutely category 5 for you. Like, just absolutely category 5 for you. What are they? pasta, dairy, candy, coffee, jujubes, regular soda, ice cream, milk chocolate, soft drinks, ice cream, anything artificial, artificial additives, soft drinks. This is a great category 5 list. It's great. By the way, how many of you are looking at the category 5 list here and seeing some items for you that maybe should be category 5, but they're not quite there yet? Is anybody seeing a few items that maybe are more like category 4 for you, right? So here's a couple things. The younger you are, the more robust your body is about this stuff. And so if you're young and you're in really good shape, then you can be a little bit more flexible about category 4. Like, here's the truth, guys. I'm in pretty good shape for my age. Never mind, I'm in pretty good shape. So, and then when I add for my age, what does that mean? It means that if I'm at my friend's house and they haul out some really good quality dark chocolate that I know is sweetened with, say, sugar rather than a raw sugar or a coconut sugar or something that I might be happier with. By the way, your pancreas doesn't really give a damn. Either way, you're slamming yourself with sugar. But I'm just saying, this friend of mine hauls this thing out. Now, where I am is I'm not in debt physically. You understand? I don't have a bunch of weight to lose. I'm not borderline diabetic. And so if I want to make that decision and have that as a category 4 thing for me, that's very different, say, than somebody who's carrying 30 pounds that they're trying to get rid of. So again, this is why we're not here to tell you what your category 4 and 5 should be, because it has everything to do with who you are. It has everything to do with what your goals are. What I want to suggest to you is that when you make the decision to put something in category 5, you do it with certainty and you put it there and then you're free from it. By the way, let me show you something. I know you've heard this from me before, but we got it sometimes repetition, right? Listen. Oh, here's what a lot of people think freedom is. Freedom is the ability or the ability to choose what they're going to eat when they want to eat it and that kind of stuff. That's what they think freedom is. So they go to an event, they go to a wedding, say, and there's a buffet, and then they walk through the buffet and they go, ooh, no, I really shouldn't. And then they put some other stuff on their plate and they go, oh, but I could. Yeah, but I really shouldn't. But it's a wedding. I mean, it's not like they're going to get married again in the next. I mean, they'll last at least 3 or 4 years. I've known them a while, 3 or 4. But the point being is, it's not like they're not getting married again next week. So I could make it, and then we start having a dialogue with ourselves about what we can have and can't have, and then it's like yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Food angel, food devil, food angel, food devil. That is not freedom. That's not freedom at all. That's trapped. And by the way, that muscle, it's not really a muscle, but it's like a metaphor, okay? It's not an actual muscle, but it's like a metaphor. That muscle could be called your decision engine. And what's crazy about the decision engine is the more decisions you ask it to make, the more tired it gets. And by the way, the science on this is pretty fascinating. Like some of you might have read the book Freakonomics. In there, they talk about that if ever you end up on parole, like if you ever, Leslie, this is for you. I have a feeling. I'm kidding. But if ever you end up on parole, what you want to do is best possible is, and for those of you who don't understand parole, because I know it's different in different countries, it's like you're in jail and you can get early release on good behavior, but you'll have to visit a parole officer. It's kind of like you're not in jail anymore, but you're still being watched, right? And so if you go up for your parole hearing, you want to be one of the first 2 or 3 people in the day, or the very first person after lunch. Those people statistically get granted parole way more than anybody else. Why? Because when the parole hearing people come in, they're fresh in the morning or they're fresh after lunch. So their engine is ready to go. But after they've made a few of these decisions, their decision engine starts to get tired. And then once the decision engine gets tired, they're no longer willing to take risks. And they're going to do the safest thing. So granting you parole is a risk, because you could leave the prison and go commit another crime, and that would look bad on them. So once their decision engine is tired, no parole. Well, here's what happens to us. We go to the wedding. We look at the cake. We look at the cookies. We look at the whatever. Yes, no, maybe. I don't think so. Look, not for now, but we'll check in again later. Well, I don't know. And the more you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, eventually what's going to happen is that engine's going to get tired. And then the safest thing to do is going to be to eat the damn thing so you don't miss out. Can anybody relate to that? Okay. But watch what happens if you do this. come hell or high water at this wedding, I am not eating any of the wedding cake. I don't care who pushes me. I don't care how yummy they tell me it is. I don't care that it's gluten-free. I am not eating any of the wedding cake. I promise. Do you know what you have now? Freedom. You don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to bounce it around in your head. You don't have to argue with yourself. You can look over it and go, wow, I wish I hadn't made that decision, but I did. So it's finished. It's done. By the way, where did I get this idea from? I got it from parenting. Because do you know what's really crazy is you can tell a lot about a child and their parents by the methods the kids use to get what they want. Can't you? See, if a kid is going, please, 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 mama, please, 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 I really want it, mommy, please, 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 daddy, daddy, I gotta have it, please, 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 please. And they're going on and on and on and on and on and on. You're gonna have to recognize that at some point, a parent gave into that. Because if the parent never ever gave into that, the kid would stop doing it because it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. So here's the thing. If you go to the wedding and you don't commit that you're not going to eat it, and you walk in there and you go, ooh, I could. No, I really shouldn't. You know, I shouldn't. You should have some. No, I'm on a diet. No, I don't really want to. I mean, I know I want to, but I'm not really going to. I might. Maybe I'll have one bite, just one bite. You know, one piece of cake, one small piece. I'll have a thin piece of cake without ice cream. Okay, with one small scoop of ice cream, just a little, just a piece. Okay, give me that big piece over there, right? Like what happens is that we go through this dialogue and then we train ourselves that dialogue is the path to the cake. And then we go to the next event and torture ourselves again. So here's what I want you to do the next time you're going to the wedding or whatever the event is. You just decide up front. What are you going to do? Are you going to have some category 4 stuff or not? Just decide. See, for me, it's really easy. When I'm in spring, I'm just not gonna. I mean, that's really simple. I'm in spring. Oh, I'm in spring and there's a wedding. Oh, done deal. Not going to have any. But if I'm not in spring, then, you know, then I have to think about it. Then I might go, I might do that. Like, I'll tell you something. You organize a party at my place. Don't invite Ariel. Just don't. Don't invite her. She brings over all these cakes. She brings over all these WildFit approved cakes. Now, let me tell you something. They're not good for you. Now, okay, they're not so bad, right? They're gluten-free. She uses the best possible coconut sugars and, you know, there's no dairy in them. And let me tell you something. Ariel is a drug dealer. I don't care what you say. She's the first one going, come on, it's really yummy. It's pretty good. It's gluten-free. It's like, no, you got to make a decision before you talk to Ariel. You don't want to go to the party undecided because she's going to win. But if you're decided, you go, no, I'm in spring. I'm not doing it. Then you're safe. By the way, Ariel, for everybody's benefit, I'm totally exaggerating. She would never try to push you to eat something that you didn't want to eat. I'm teasing her. I'm accurate about the cakes, but she's not really a drug dealer. So what I'm saying here is that when you make a decision, when you firmly make a decision, you buy yourself a bunch of freedom because there's a huge amount of freedom on the other side of a commitment. It's just that simple. There's a huge amount of freedom on the other side of saying, I will not, I do not, I won't, I don't. So that's my general rant on getting back on track, staying back on track, jumping back on the wagon, all that kind of stuff. I'd love to talk to you guys. Like, tell me what's going on out there. Do you have a practical example or a win where you've done some of these things and it's really worked for you? Jump in with me. Ariel, can you kind of moderate?
I was looking for some really emphatic waving. There's a couple like hesitant. And Ruth has his hand up, so I'll go to him first.
All
right, go for it.
Hey Rick, Ariel, I think first time I'm getting to talk to you live. I've seen quite a few of your videos on the WildFit challenge, which I just finished right now. So, I mean, it got over last Sunday, and over the 90 odd days, I lost 30 pounds. So that was a big win for me. The only challenge with me is I'm a vegetarian. I've been born veg in India. I mean, almost almost 50% of the population is veg. So we are very, very used to the vegetarian diet, and eating meat is not a part of our lifestyle at all. But in spite of that, I stuck to the guidelines. I mean, the foods that I could eat, And like, even in terms of my biological age, I came down from 42 to 32. 42 is my current age. Right now on my smart scale, it shows my age as 32. So that was another win. My question to, I think, Eric, is in terms of vegetarian proteins, like how do you supplement? And that's one area which I have not been clear. Even through the programs, there was a yes and no for lentils. Lentils was one thing which we regularly cook. Some of the Q&As which I heard with Ariel, she was okay with it. And the Q&As which happened during our program, they were saying avoid it. So I just want your understanding in terms of vegan protein and how to supplement that.
Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to share with you. It's funny. I obviously think a lot about vegetarianism because I was vegan for many years, and obviously I'm in this industry, and so I have to think a lot about it. And you're a member. You know my views. My preference would be to say to be a little bit more flexible.
Very well.
And so before I get to the supplements, I'm going to use this to just show you something that a lot of people are not so familiar with in India. India is not nearly as vegetarian as the country pretends that it is. In fact, it's very regional. So can you see this first map up here?
Yeah.
The darker the green, it's the percentage of the people that eat fish at least once a week. Now, do you see that along almost every coastline, they are eating fish, at least 100% of people are eating fish once a week?
Correct, yeah.
Right? And then as they move further in from the coastline, it goes down to 60% once a week, 40% once a week. And it's only very much in the northern half of India that they don't eat fish at all. They're 0%. You see, it's not widespread. Now, this is chicken and meat. This is chicken and meat. Now, notice that they aren't eating as much chicken and meat along the coastlines because they get a lot of theirs from fish. But if you go into the central area, and in the very, very north, you see that they were talking about people that are eating chicken and meat at 40, 60, and 80% of the time once a week. And then this is eggs. This is the country's eggs consumption. And I find it fascinating. You can see that there are some places like in the very tip here and along here where it's at 100% are eating eggs at least once a week. A huge amount of them are up in the 60%. Lots are in the 40%. The majority are in the 20%. And there's a tiny little bit over here in the northeast, not so tiny, but a big chunk here where they're saying that 0% are eating eggs at least once a week. I only want to point this out to you because, just because a lot of times people have this identity that, well, India is vegetarian and so therefore I have to be vegetarian. I'm not arguing against you. You can do what you want. I just want you to know that it's not a national identity the way, for some reason, the belief is that it is that way. It isn't. That said, let's talk a little bit about supplementation. When you choose to avoid eating meat, there are a number of potential challenges, and the main three are fat. Animal fats are the healthiest fats for human beings. Vegetable fats are basically, vegetable fats are not healthy for us unless you're eating them inside the vegetable. Extracted vegetable fats, they're just not good for us. Olive oil is so very healthy. It's first of all not a vegetable, it's a fruit, but I wouldn't even say it's all that healthy. It's like acceptable. But animal fats are that's a really tough thing for vegetarians to replace because they don't end up with enough saturated fats. And this is a hard thing to say these days because for the last 30 years, the American dietary guidelines and the world guidelines have been telling us that saturated fat is evil, and they're wrong. And they're now admitting it. In fact, just last week, they issued a full, huge report that showed that there was no correlation between cholesterol and heart disease the way we've been taught all these years. And the whole thing is changing, right? So one of the challenges is going to be how you deal with making sure you're getting enough saturated fats. Obviously, there are good, there are good availability of fats in things like nuts and some fat-rich fruits like olives and avocados and stuff, but they're not ideal. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I don't even know how you supplement for that, except weirdly, you could supplement for it by taking fish oil supplements, which would obviously not be vegan, right? So, then it gets into the question of why and is that ethically okay for you and so on. That's fat. That's the toughest of them all. Then the next one is protein. And of course, it's really important to understand that it isn't actually about protein. It is about amino acids. the trouble with talking about protein, that's like saying that you need air. You do not. You do not need air. You need oxygen. So if I put you in a room full of air with no oxygen, you will die. So it's not, you don't need air, you need oxygen. You don't need protein, you need all 20 amino acids. You need all of them. Now, if you're generally quite healthy, you will manufacture 11 of them yourself in your body. You'll just make them if you're generally nutritionally healthy. But no matter how healthy you are, the other 9 are called essential amino acids because you must ingest them, you must eat them. And so then the trouble with that is that there is no plant, there's no legume, there's no lentil, there's no nut, there's no leaf that has all of them. There's none. And so now you end up in this weird game of trying to make sure that you're getting enough of this one and enough of that one. And so from a supplements perspective, you would need to either make sure you're eating an incredibly convoluted collection of different plants to make sure that you are getting all of those amino acids, or you would need to actually supplement for those amino acids. Very important. And by the way, just so you know, I think we've all talked about this, but let's just get it out there. Protein is not just your muscle and your hair and your fingernails. Your body makes proteins. Proteins are complex molecules that are basically like little robots that do things in your body. They have jobs. So insulin is a protein. Your body makes insulin. Now, I can't prove my idea about this, but I believe that one of the reasons that diabetes is really, really rampaging in India right now, one of the reasons beyond the prolific eating of chapatis and sugar, beyond that, the other problem is that I think that in the northwestern parts of India, I think they're having a hard time synthesizing insulin because they're protein deficient. And I think that's part of the problem. Now, I'm not a doctor, and this is a theory of mine that's not, you know, it's just an idea, but it stands to reason that if you don't have all the amino acids, you're going to have a hard time building the proteins your body wants to build. The way I tend to think of them is that the amino acids are like these 20 Lego pieces, and you can't build the Millennium Falcon without all 20. You need all 20 of them to build that particular protein molecule. And by the way, you know what else is a protein? Is antibodies. So your body encounters a virus, and it now tries to fight the virus with your innate immune system. In other words, it gives you a temperature, it causes mucus production. These are all innate immune system responses. But your adaptive immune system wants to learn the virus, and it wants to learn how to stop the virus from being able to get to you the next time. And so it learns how to make antibodies. And those antibodies are made out of those Lego pieces. If you are missing the green 8 piece, and the green 8 is required to make that antibody, you're going to die on the respirator in the hospital, in my opinion. So again, making sure that you get all the amino acids is incredibly important. And then B12. And the veganista movement out there will tell you that there's no, you don't need to get B12. And they'll tell you everything from you make it yourself, which is true, but not true. That's how we do it these days. Take a truth and lie with it. Here's how it's true. Yes, you do manufacture your own B12. You do. But you manufacture it so far back in your digestive system that you poop it out. You're not manufacturing it for you. You're manufacturing it for the soil. So you don't get access to your own B12. So when they say you make it yourself, they're not understanding the biology. Then the other thing that the veganista movement will often say about B12 is that you get your B12 by not washing your vegetables. In other words, there's B12 in the soil. Okay. Let me just tell you something about your soil. It's not vegan. That's why there's B12 in it. It's dead, decaying, rotting insects and animals. So if you're willing to not wash it and eat the dead, decaying, rotting insects and animals, you may as well have a steak. I'm kidding. I know you don't want to have a steak, but I'm just saying that when they tell us not to wash the vegetables and that's, I've heard many vegans say this to us. Like I think they even said this in Forks Over Knives. Like, well, we used to get our B12 because we didn't wash our, okay. Like these days, you better damn well wash your vegetables. I don't care how organic they are. There is crap on those vegetables that needs to be washed. It's the way it is. In fact, I'm going to tell you, my values about this have been upgraded a level. I used to be the kind of person that would buy oranges and I would just cut them open. Now I wash them and cut them open because I've just come to realize that even though it's on the skin on the outside, it's going to get on my fingers and it's going to, no, you got to wash them. So where are you going to get your B12 from? Well, B12 comes from animal products. So you're going to have to supplement. You're going to have to go get an IV drip or an occasional booster injection or something like that. And here's a little irony for you all. I broke this irony on Twitter last year and annoyed a few people, but like the irony is that one of the side effects of B12 deficiency is aggression. Now, the reason it's an irony is I look. How do I say your name? Amruth?
Amrut, yeah.
Amruth.
Amrut, yeah. I think you got it correct.
You
Yeah.
probably know this about Americans, but Americans don't like, as a country, their understanding of the English language is somewhat. I'm an arrogant Canadian at the moment, but sometimes have you ever noticed Americans use the word literally when it's not literal?
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
like,
I work with
literally
Americans, so I know.
Right. Well, irony is another one of those. You see, Alanis Morissette, and by the way, she's Canadian, so it's her fault.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette told us that a black fly in our Chardonnay, isn't it ironic? No, it's inconvenient. It's nothing ironic about it. It's not, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. She just ruined the word ironic. Here is ironic. Really guys, here's ironic. Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan. Do you guys all remember when he was shot? You guys remember when he was shot? I remember he said to his wife in the hospital, "Sorry, Nancy, I forgot to duck." The man had a great sense of humor. But here's the real thing though. He never got shot. He was hit by a bullet that bounced off his bulletproof limousine.
Yeah.
Now why is that ironic? Well, because the bulletproof limousine was designed to protect him from getting shot. But if his limousine wasn't bulletproof, then he wouldn't have got shot. That's ironic. And so B12 deficiency causing aggression is ironic because the reason it causes aggression is to make sure that you get your fair share of the meat from the kill. That's why it's there. It's there to make sure you get enough. And yet what's going on is when people get too deficient in it, they start becoming objectionable and rude and nasty. And the joke of it is what they really want you to do is to hand them a rib. They just don't know that. So you got to supplement for B12. And if you do find your temper fraying and any of that kind of stuff, that might be a bit of an indication that you're running a little low.
But can I tell you something that's really ironic?
Yes.
Okay, in India, vegetarian people are considered to be very cool-tempered.
Yeah, you know what though?
They say aggression comes from eating non-veg. Yeah, that's ironic in India. If somebody is really hot-tempered, that means he's eating a lot of meat, and that's the funny part.
But Amruth, here's the that's not a matter of irony. That's a matter of biochemistry. There are no vegans in India. There are vegetarians.
The vegetarians, yeah, I understand. Yeah,
they're getting their B12 from milk. Correct. Right now, milk is not a great thing to eat, but it will prevent them running a B12 deficiency. Yeah. And I somehow suspect that there's a lot less milk consumption at the Indian-Pakistan border because they keep shooting each other. I think they're B12 low. I'm kidding. A little political humor.
Maybe at the Pakistani border, Indians are still under control. So.
So listen, main thing that you got to think about is making sure you're getting all the really good healthy fats that you need to get. You got to make sure you're getting the full, whole, complete proteins, which is going to be a little bit more complicated if you choose not to have meat. And then you also got to make sure that you're supplementing for B12. Yeah. Those are the main issues. Yeah,
I got that. Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, Eric.
Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up question, if you don't mind. We had sent the request for the Facebook group for Living WildFit. It was not approved. Does it take time? Is there a process for that?
They probably noticed that you're a B12 deficient. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No. They should let you in. If you write to support@getwildfit.com, they'll probably take care of it quite quickly. In the meantime, actually, Ariel, if one of you could just look, if one of you is
Angela is already on it.
All right, sounds good. They'll get you approved right now.
I'll probably mention that I'm not B12 deficient, as a comment. Yeah.
It's one of the questions when you join. When did you complete WildFit, and are you currently B12 deficient? Because we don't want any tempers. Ruth, thank you for being playful, open-minded. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Eric. Take care. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Okay, next we're going to go to Jane.
Hello, Jane.
I think. There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
From Toronto, Canada.
Good deal.
I got to say, I just love this program. Okay, so what was I going to ask you? Can't remember now. Having a B12. No. That's
Can't blame B12 for everything now. Come on.
No, but I could try. Anyway, I have been finding that I've reached, I think I've reached a plateau with my weight loss. You know, going back to trying to get back into spring and and sometimes being hard. I have not found it hard because I never really like the stuff that I went into I guess summer and fall with was a little too much alcohol and fruit. I haven't had any dairy or bread, wheat, carbohydrates. But I'm thinking that I probably plateaued because of the fact that I did stray a little bit and had too much of the fruit and alcohol and stuff like that.
Well, there's something important to know. I believe that it's not a matter of too much, it's a matter of too often. And what I mean by that is that if you think of every single day as your body kind of has to make a decision about what mode to be in that day. And so if you wake up in the morning and at some point in that day, you have some carbohydrates and more than say 25 grams or so of carbohydrates. Like, I'm not typically into measurements, but that's one measurement we do talk about. And then in that, what you've done is you've basically said that day that you're going to prepare for winter that day. That's basically what you've said. And so then the next day, if you do it again, you're now 2 days preparing for winter. Whereas, so here's what I'd be kind of saying. It's like, let's say I have a choice between eating a small bowl of ice cream, a small bowl of dairy-free, coconut sugar, raw, best possible ice cream that I can, category 4 for me, and maybe 3 if it's really, really good stuff. Then I want to eat that, but as much as it might be category 3, I know that it's not spring. So if I eat a tiny little bowl of it every day for 10 days, then every day for 10 days, I have told my body that winter's coming. Whereas if I ate the entire carton of it and then didn't eat it again for the next 9 days, then on one day I told my body winter's coming. And on 9 days, I told my body, no, it isn't. Then that's going to be more effective, right?
Okay.
So I often bump into people and I feel like I let them down, that I didn't explain this well enough. And Ariel, I definitely want us to make sure that in week 13, we really get this idea across, because people sometimes come to me and go, oh, Eric, I'm like 90% WildFit, 90%. I'm like, well, there is no 90%. There's you are, and then there's you choosing your categories and seasons. So you're 100%. But then they go, yeah, but I'm like 90% spring. And I go, oh, do you mean 90% each day? Or do you mean 9 out of 10 days?
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you tell me that you're 90% on track every day, then I'm going to assume you're going to hit a weight loss plateau and you're going to have sugar management problems and cravings resurfacing. Whereas if you tell me that you are 9 out of 10 days in spring and 1 day not, then I'm going to go, yeah, you're going to have 2 or 3 days of hellish cravings after that 1 day, but then you're going to jump back in and everything's going to be fine. And you're going to break the plateau. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. So I guess this is the why you put together the 6 days on, 1 day off, or the 28 days one or whatever it is. And yeah, okay. Another question I have is I was quite surprised to find that I really enjoy the fat bombs. To the point where I might have been having, like, I never got up to having 3 a day, but maybe like 2. And I also like having turkey bacon and eggs. And I use an awful lot, I shouldn't say an awful lot, but I use like olive oil and coconut oil when I'm cooking that.
All right. I want to say this. Fat has been vilified, and I don't think fat is. I don't think that deserves that rap. I think that the artificial, like the polyunsaturated, garbage fats they're not even food, and they shouldn't be anywhere near us.
Right.
And then I look at some of the vegetable oils you use, and I'm like, well, if you want to drizzle a little on your salad or put it on your pan so you don't sticking or what have you, then that's okay. I don't think it's so very healthy. But then when we do start talking about, like the animal fats and that sort of stuff, like, guys, I'm going to say something that it's probably going to blow your mind that I would say this, but the truth is, if I was going to fry an egg in a pan, I would sooner use butter than coconut oil.
Oh, shocking.
And I don't, and you know me, I don't even like dairy products, but the type of fat that's in that butter is a type of fat that's more suited to human consumption than the type of fat that came out of an extracted coconut. Like it's now, I'm not saying you guys have to do it that way. And by the way, in my case, I actually, if I'm going to do that, I actually prefer that it's ghee, not butter, because ghee has been clarified and the lactose has been burned off, and and what have you. I still can't reconcile with the fact that dairy is the most unconscionably unethical food on earth, as far as I'm concerned, and that bothers me. But I'm just now talking about straight up what you're putting into your body. And the fact is, I believe that animal fats are, we grew dependent upon them. They're much healthier for us, and the vegetable fats are very often not so much. And so that's, so for even the fat bombs, like I look, from time to time, no problem. If you're only having 2, it's no big deal. But if you're having 2 every day, like, again, I'd sooner you made like a flat of them and ate them all in the weekend and then didn't touch them again for a long time. Like, I'd rather you did that than eat them every single day. I like, it's the same thing with alcohol. I would rather somebody drank 6 glasses of wine on a Saturday. I don't want to be there because they're going to be objectionable, but I'd rather somebody drank 6 glasses of wine on a Saturday than 1 glass of wine every night of 6 nights of the week, because the liver is going to get a chance to repair rather than facing the regular, consistent daily onslaught. And so I think our diet largely should be looked at that way as well. Again, guys, like, we're now at a point of optimization. Like, Jane, when we're worried about whether we're eating 1 or 2 fat bombs compared to where we were pre-WildFit, we're talking about super high quality problems. It's reasonable. If you're a little worried you're overdoing the fat bombs, I'm like, well, I wouldn't worry too much about that. It may not be ideal, but it's not a Big Mac, and it's not, are you with me?
Yes, I am. Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
cool.
I know what to do now. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I think we have 7 minutes left, so I'm going to go over to Lori. She has a question about fat release.
Hey, Eric. I wanted to pick your brain about what I could do to decrease the body fat percentage. When I'm in spring, I'm usually in spring for about 2 to 3 weeks, and my weight is good, but I don't see a drop in my body fat percentage. And sometimes I get bumped out of spring earlier than I'd like, possibly due to—
You say you get bumped out of spring, do you mean you get bumped out by habit, like something, you eat something out of spring, or you mean that you drop out of ketosis?
I meant to say ketosis, sorry.
Yeah, that's yeah. So a couple things to know. Those keto strips are not accurate. So unless you're using keto blood testing, it's only a guess anyway. They're not all that accurate. So don't worry about that. In fact, like, some people are like, oh my God, my keto strips are so dark today. I'll give you a really great way to darken your keto strips. Get dehydrated. And then all of a sudden your urine will have a lot more ketones in it per drop. And so your ketone strips will be higher. But it won't mean you're in any better ketosis. It just is a way of cheating the system. So I wouldn't worry that one day, or, what might have happened is that you're doing really well and you just super hydrated that day. And so your keto count was so low, I wouldn't worry about that. Now, how are you measuring your body fat percentage?
I have a scale that tells me water, body fat, and
are you like diligently weighing exactly at the same time of day in the same circumstances every single time?
Yes.
Okay. That makes a huge difference. I think I mentioned this on a recent WildFit call, but I have one of those scales too. And if I do my measurements in the mornings, and I do the whole thing, like, bathroom stuff, not a shred of clothing, go stand on the scale, see what it has to say. And it'll basically tell me that I'm around 16 or 17% body fat, which I know is not accurate. But I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about what it says over time. I'm worried about the fluctuation, not the absolute number. The weird thing is that I have 2 settings on my scale, and I started doing the evening measurements under a different setting just to see. I didn't want them to mess up my trend, my graphs. So I did an evening one. And you know what's funny is when I measure in the evening, it tells me I'm 13% body fat. like a 4% body fat drop later in the day. So these scales are not accurate. So, okay. So with all of that in mind, then let's go to like looking at you, you don't have a significant amount of weight that you're trying to lose. So when you, I get it. I'm looking at you, no, but then, so shall we suggest that you would like to release some weight from, say, the abdominal region and around the hips and bum area? Is that about right?
Mostly hips and bum, yeah. Yeah, my body fat percentage fluctuates between 22 and 23%. And I did drop a lot during my 90-day challenge last year, but I was hoping to get a little bit less. Not crazy, but, you know, a little less.
So 22% for a woman is like 17% for a man. It's pretty damn good. So that's the good thing, is it's a celebration. That's great. But then here's the next thing, is the way those scales work is they shoot an electrical current up through you and measure water content and what have you. And what does it encounter first? Your legs. The reason mine says that I'm so heavy, is that I've got abnormally large quadriceps and I don't know, upper leg muscles. Yeah, from ice hockey and biking and all that kind of stuff. But I also obviously have some fat around that area. And so if you looked at my upper body, I mean, I'm not like one of these guys that has a washboard six-pack, but I have a six-pack and I have actual muscles. Like and I do not look like somebody who's 17% body fat, but my scale thinks I am because it looks at my legs first. So that's probably partly what you're dealing with. And then let's talk about this. The way the body, I did this with a WildFit class the other day. It was kind of fun. I said to them, all right, if we're going to design a human being and the human being has the capacity to store water and fat, water and energy, where are we going to put it, right? And we're going to put it on the belly because it's going to protect the abdomen. Then we're going to put it around the bum and legs because it's not in the way. The last place we're going to want to put fat is like on our fingers because it would affect our dexterity. We don't really want it on our arms, maybe a little bit under here where it won't get in the way, but we wouldn't want it up here, But equally, that means the last place we want to release it from is the places where it's least inconvenient. So where's it not inconvenient? It's not inconvenient on your thighs and legs. So now what do you got to do? So there are some things. The one is to let's go after a bunch of different strategies. The one is to go longer in spring, and you might even, this is harsh, but you might want to go into like an even deeper version of spring where you truly eat only meat for a week. Like you only meat, fish, eggs, that kind of stuff, just for a week. No vegetables, no cellulose, no, like nothing, like pure carnivore spring. It's the hunter spring. I don't generally recommend that. I'm not often the one to say to do that, particularly to women. It's more of a man thing, but I don't think there's any harm in it. So you could go into a deeper, longer version of spring. The next thing is you could, you should push for really intensive aerobic exercise.
Okay.
Like where you are sweating or glowing intensely, if you prefer, but where you're sweating and you're breathing not breathing so hard that you can't speak, but definitely labored breathing. And like, I'm talking upwards of an hour of that at a time to really shock your body into releasing, into burning that fat away. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can get a like these lymphatic drainage massage or cellulite massage where they'll take a scraper. They'll actually take a scraper. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm a massage therapist.
You know what I'm talking about. So I have seen my personal trainer does that kind of work for a lot of the women that he works with, and I've seen him work miracles on that. Just I don't know the physics behind it, but it really can make a difference there. And then fourth thing, and this is big, and this is a tough one, but work on muscle density, resistance exercise. The more muscle density you have, the more fibers are active. Like I can't remember exactly how it works, but I think, for example, in the bicep, there are 2 muscles, and each one has 6 muscle fibers, but most people only operate with 2 of them. You probably know this better than I do. And so what happens when people stop working out is they don't actually lose the muscle right away. The fibers just stop firing. Mm-hmm. So if you can get all those fibers really firing with resistance exercise, you will burn more calories as a normal course of your day. And so your body will start getting higher caloric demands. Okay, and then the fifth thing is start your day on an empty stomach or on a very spring stomach, but start your day on an empty stomach with like an intensive 20 or 25-minute walk that gets your blood rate up and tells your body, holy crap, we've got some demands that we're making today.
Okay.
And all of those things will stimulate additional fat loss. Okay. And the sixth thing is increase your intake of fat. Like, you know, when you're wanting to release fat, the irony, again, it is an irony based on what we've been taught, is increase your intake of healthy fats.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Yeah, my exercise hasn't been that strenuous, so I'll go back to doing some of that a little bit more.
Do you know what I'm a big fan of? I'm a huge fan of, and I'm not a fan of the man, but I'm a fan of the yoga, Bikram yoga.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Bikram yoga. Bikram Chowdhury, another story, not a guy I'd want to model for a lifestyle, but his yoga is the best yoga that I've ever done for alignment and fat melting. It's incredible.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's all she wrote. Eric, do you have anything you would like to say in closing to the group?
You know, I think just want to come back to the idea that there's a lot of freedom on the other side of a commitment. There's a lot of freedom on the other side of a promise. And so there are a couple of decisions that you can make at different times in your life that will really help. For example, when you're in spring, it's really good to know the minimum time you're going to be in spring. Don't just go, I'm going to go in spring for a while. Why? Because once you've been in for 2 or 3 days, you're going to have to start deciding every day, am I in spring today? Am I in spring today? Am I in spring today? And Mother Nature would never have allowed you to have that problem, right? Like Mother Nature would have just said, no, it's spring. That's the way it is. And so I find a lot better if when you go into spring, you make the decision, I'm going to be in spring for 10 days or 20 days or 30 days or 5 days or whatever it is for you. So that's and you firmly commit to it. And by the way, I'm going to give you a little personal development hack here. If any of you have ever struggled with self-esteem at all, which is probably all of us at some point, in some way, in some reality, and here's one of the things I want to tell you. One of the fastest ways to build self-esteem is to follow through on your personal commitments to yourself. It's incredible. But if you say to yourself, I will be in spring for a week, and then you stay in for the whole week, and you're like, man, I really do what I say I'm going to do. That boosts your self-esteem. It makes you a stronger human being. It's character building. It's incredibly good. Then the next thing is that when you come out of spring, you should determine at the point before you come out, before the candida starts voting, right? You should come out, you should decide, well, I'm coming out tomorrow. When will I go back in? You should decide that before the candida gets a vote. You should, like, you know, hold up. Like we've already passed the law. You can't, not up for you to have discussion in. You want to be dictatorial about it. So you've decided that you're coming out of spring for a week and you're going back in next Sunday. You go, I'm going back into spring next Sunday. You mark it on the calendar and you just stick with it. And then the third one that's similar to that is the decision about the category 5 things. Is you really make a decision when something is category 5 and you really truly leave it there in category 5. And then I would say to you that if ever you feel like you need to test something out of category 5, then the only way you do that is something like this. All right. I hear you, Sugar Monster. I hear you, Food Devil. You're going to keep shouting about this. We can do an experiment, but we're going to watch. We're going to learn. We're going to do it consciously. We're going to really understand it. And we're going to make this commitment to ourselves before we conduct the experiment, that the experiment is for only 24 hours, which means that if you eat this thing that you decided you want to test, you want to run this experiment, that you are not allowed to have it the day tomorrow. And this is, we don't use words like allowed very often, but every now and again, you got to use short-term willpower to create long-term results. And so I'm going to have this thing today, but I'm not going to have it for 30 days after that. Why? Because we know that many of those foods are addiction oriented. Many of those foods are triggering foods or cascading foods. And so if we're going to experiment with it, we want to make sure the experiment doesn't get out of control. Those are my thoughts for you today on getting yourself freedom through higher levels of commitment. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you on the next call. It's a privilege to share WildFit with you all. I'm so proud and happy to have you in our community. Thanks so much.